What is up, you beauties? My name is BatchatBegins, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're actually going to be talking about what is my favorite buff of the entirety of 8.7, that being the buff to the Centurion 7-1's armor. Now, this thing recently got a buff as well that actually increased its top speed. So not only is it fast now, it has Centurion Mark 5/1 armor, like the tier 8 rack, and it is absolutely incredible. So just a couple things to go over before we really get into the nitty-gritty gameplay. First being that obviously there's two different types of guns that you can run on the Centurion 7-1. You can either run the Hesh gun, which I actually prefer to run, or you can run the gun that has heat. Now, to be fair, you do get a fairly consistent gun when you play with the heat gun. But where is the fun in that? I would say, to be fair, in tier 9, since it's not as stat-based as tier 10, I would say just go out there and have some fun with the Hesh gun. I mean, this thing can be an absolute blast to play with this gun. So definitely would recommend you guys try out both, just see what you like better. But as far as the Hesh gun goes, would definitely recommend running calibrated shells so you can get that pin all the way up to 231 millimeters of penetration, and load yourself a very healthy loadout of Hesh, because you're going to be spamming that for sure. Now, before we go ahead and get into the replay, first I want to show you what the armor looks like now. As you can see right here in Armor Inspector, the roof has been buffed to about 200 or so millimeters. And so what that means when you go hull down is it's more or less an auto bounce now when you're looking at enemy tanks. And if you angle and wiggle correctly, these sides, yes, they're still pinnable, but if you wiggle back and forth and you wiggle on top of a hill, up and down, back and forth, it's going to be a very difficult pin for same tier medium tanks, higher tier medium tanks. It's going to be a little bit easier for TDs because obviously they can just, they can just sit there and just punch through your hull armor if they get the chance. But if you are tricky, you can absolutely bully medium and light tanks of same tier, higher tier, lower tier, and heavy tanks of lower tier for sure. I can tell you right now, bullying tier 8 heavy tanks is a great pastime. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop into the first replay of today and just kind of talk about the strong points and where to position this tank in order to succeed. So hopping into our first battle of the day, we're here solo on Faust. And we're just going to take our Cent 7-1 and put it in the most strong spot that we possibly can, and that is going to be the A corner. Now the reason being is because they have two Object 84s and a T-54 lightweight. We absolutely dominate those guys when it comes to hull down fighting. And of course, we have our own T-92E1 and Object 84 coming with us, so obviously we want to play toward our strong side, and all of our tier 9s are light or medium tanks, so this is a perfect spot to go ahead and go to. Now, of course, just getting the pleasantries of the beginning of the battle out of the way, saying hi to some subscribers, some fans. So right now, we're just going to go ahead and start to be a menace here on the flank. Now, obviously, the Object 84 is a very strong tank. If you haven't checked out my review on the tank, make sure to go ahead and go back into the previous videos. I do have a review if you were wanting to learn how to play that tank. But as you can see, those tanks are going to be very passive. So because of that, we're just going to go ahead and start to flank them right now. Go ahead and position ourselves to where we can get hull down and just start absolutely slinging the Hesh into the enemies here. We already managed to get a pretty good pin earlier on the Object 84, get a nice solid 439 roll there on the 54 lightweight, and now we're just going to start farming the hell out of the AT-15. And this is the reason why I say the Hesh gun is so good, because while you would be doing more consistent damage, I will say, with the heat gun, it is just an absolute game changer to have this kind of pin on a tank like this and do so much damage. So right now, we're just going to go ahead and focus their tier 9 KPZ, get some nice Hesh into the sides of the tanks. And one thing I will say about the Cent 7-1, it's definitely not a beginner-friendly tank. Obviously, because it doesn't have premium ammo, that means it is going to limit some of the options that you have when playing tier 9. You do have to be careful. You do have to know what tanks that you can pin. And so because of that, I would definitely recommend this to at least intermediate drivers, intermediate tankers, not the very, very newest of tankers. I definitely wouldn't recommend this line But if you're just looking to have fun and abuse some people, I mean, like, look at the damage we're putting out on these guys. Like, we're absolutely hosing down these Object 84s, that KPZ. I mean, the AT-15 didn't last more than 3 shots from this gun. This thing is an absolute menace of a tank. Now, we're going to get stuck into some brawling here, and you'll see where the armor does let it down just a little bit, because, of course, I'm coming up against a Tier 9 TD. And because of that, you know, I can go ahead and pin it hull down, but that hatch is a little bit troll, so when fighting it at a distance like this with that awful, you know, on-the-move accuracy that this thing has, it is a little bit tricky to pin the hatch, and because of that, I overexposed myself and let the Foch have a shot into me. But I do know how to aim my shells, and because of that, we are able to go ahead and get the Foch, put a nice shot into his hatch, and we're going to go ahead and finish the Object 84 off with a nice Hess shot to the rear, just to make sure that we go ahead and take him out. And that lands us on just over 5,000 damage in our first battle for today. About 111,000 credits, which is not too bad. Ended up with 38,000 total because, you know, I do be slinging the Hesh. But nonetheless, GG to the team. The Object 84 and the 92 did a good job of following up on that push that I called for earlier. I will say also a GG to the Foch. He did a very good job as well. So we're going to go ahead and hop into our next battle and show you just how we can go ahead and abuse heavy tanks with this kind of tank. So hopping into our second battle of today, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to play this tank on the heavy side. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because I don't really want to get into a prolonged brawl with tanks that outspot me and tanks that have better turrets. And the reason why I say that is because I'm definitely not wanting to fight a Rack 5-1. It has basically the same armor as mine. It's going to be a prolonged fight, and I might not be able to go ahead and push and help my team out enough. So I told my platoon mate 34 that I'm just going to go ahead and send it to the heavy side so that I can go ahead and get spots out and potentially trade in some big shells against these enemy heavy tanks. As you can see, this fantastic buffed mobility coming into play where I'm going 50 kilometers to the heavy side. And obviously, don't want to start trading right away. We want to start, you know, feeling out the position, see who's come over here, and potentially where we need to go to get in those nice, juicy Hess shells. Looking for those, you know, 440 damage rolls and the like. Now, as you can see, I'm just trying to stay hold down behind the cover, and we get a nice 505 damage roll to start right into the KPZ. Bet that guy is not enjoying his time too much. And the VK4502B, while it is a decent tank, it definitely does not have good side armor. You know, the Maushan and the Mouse and the rest of the tanks, they're much more consistent with the side armor. So as you can see, their Action X is not pushing, so best option for me would be to just go ahead over here and try and put as much pressure on these heavies as I possibly can. And as you can see, we are trading in very, very well with the Kampfpanzer 70. This guy does not enjoy my company. And because of that, most of our heavies are already full health. And I'm just fine with going ahead and trading a shell into the VK4502B because I'm still at 1200 health while he's basically at 0. Now, I didn't want to rush into both these heavies. My team was being a little bit passive, so I was thinking maybe we can get a nice hatch shot onto the Action X. But it does look like he has a little bit of a berm there that he's able to go ahead and push his tank up to, which means that I'm struggling a little bit to get a hatch shot with Hesh, and it's still going to be a very tough shot with APCR as well. So instead of trying to force that brawl with the Action X, I'm just going to go ahead, get in here, and try and finish off the KPZ. You know, on the move, we do get a very nice shot into the side of his turret there, and we do manage to finish him off. Now, by no means is this game a done deal, but it is certainly looking close to a win for our team at this point. Now, of course, you want to know when to fire Hesh and when to not. If you did fire Hesh there, it would have most certainly hit the objects there and bounce. But when you do know where to fire Hesh, pretty much anyone can be a victim of this tank. So at this point, rocking about 800 or so health, just about 900 health, and game's a little bit over now, but at this point, it's just farming time. I'm trying to keep my teammates alive, and at this point, we're just going to go ahead and push up here and try to get our tank in a hold down spot where it can succeed. The Waffle, unfortunately, does have Spall Liner, which does kind of limit our damage potential. And you'll see, when I'm out here in the open and I'm not hold down, I am fairly weak. I'm being pinned frontally by the Rack 5-1, and obviously that tank does have good penetration, but by no means is this tank a very highly armored tank, so you do have to know where exactly to position it. Get a very, very nice 523 roll there into the side of the T92E1, and we're just going to finish by mopping up this waffle and the rack. Just taking care of business, you know, casually getting 5Ks with probably what I said was the best buff of update 8.7, the Centurion 7-1, and that puts us just over 5K again, getting 5.1K damage. So I would say definitely check this tank out, guys. Like I said, it has 2 fantastic gun options, but if you want to have a ton of fun in tier 9 and just, you know, absolutely bully some medium tanks and potentially even heavies, I mean, you gotta take a look at this tank. It is so good. So that said, guys, that is it for this video. I will have another video coming out tomorrow, and there might potentially be a stream today. So make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date on the channel. Would love to have you around for the streams. This has been your boy, BatchatBegins, and I'll see you guys in the next one.